Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Audrey and this is Audrey Curates. So today I'm doing a Twitter challenge on YouTube because I do stuff like that. Basically, this challenge is the #museum30 and it is created by the wonderful Gracie Price. Her Twitter handle is @magnifyingzoology, and basically she creates these 30 days in November where the museum community on Twitter comes together and shares pictures to these prompts that she creates. And yeah, I'm going to do it on YouTube because I'm really bad at remembering to do it on Twitter, so now I'm doing it on YouTube. If you want to join in, make sure to pick a prompt and put your comments down below. And yeah, let's go. Museum. I'm going with my two favorite museums, Palazzo Falson for the local museum and Rome and Bath for the international museums. Who am I? Hi, my name is Audrey and I am someone who is passionate about museums, want to challenge the elitist thinking that some museums have, and also bring back stories from real people into the museums. Scribble. Well, one time I decided to scribble a face on a tiny monitor and then it ended up on a bigger screen in the gallery, and this was in Aberdeen Art Gallery. It had just opened and they have these magnificent interactive displays. And yeah, I just decided to scribble a very scary face, and then it showed for about 5 minutes to everyone. It was funny. Button. I'm going to show you my favorite image of a button that I took, but I won't name the museum where it's from. Display. So, I am in love with anything on a display. However, there are some displays that I don't like, and the one I remember is the Queen Victoria exhibition display in Kensington Palace, and I went there in July 2019, and I tell you, this exhibition had me in tears at the very end because obviously it took the visitor through the life of Queen Victoria, and obviously you see her early years, her education, her marriage, her children, her family, and then you get to a point where you just go through a dark room, and it was all about her Prince Albert's death, and you can just feel, from all the colorful displays that you go into, then you get into this dark room and you feel quite somber because obviously everyone hurts when someone dies, so you could feel this sort of empathy to the Queen. And then obviously you go into the trading and what she did with her reign, and then at the very end they had an interactive piece which prompted visitors to actually write down. For example, the one I picked up was to write something about someone who you've lost, and yeah, I basically was in tears by the end of it. Support the arts. Make sure that you follow your local artists, international artists that you like, share their work, buy their work. Please do anything that you can to support them. Obviously now we're seeing that everything is back opening up again, but please support your local artists and support artists, any kind of artists. I know that on this channel we support writers, we support museums, we support artists, we support photographers, people who love films and everything like this. So please support artists and everyone that has to do with the creative sector. I think it has been hard hit, but I hope that we come out of it really well and finally people understand the importance of the arts. Woodland. Does living in Brodie Castle, which is in a woodland, count? Safety. Always wear your safety hat when you're doing something. Memories that I have surrounding a safety hat is one of them when we went up to Beckford Tower, to the very top of Beckford Tower, and we saw basically Bath underneath us, and it was simply amazing. And then the other time I have a memory of a safety hat is when I was on my conservation placement and I was helping restore the facade of a cemetery, and it was great. It was amazing. That's all I have to say. Although scaffoldings are very scary, especially on windy days. that I can attest to. Utensil. I don't necessarily find utensils attractive, so I didn't have an image of this. So when you go to museums, make sure you take photos of utensils, because if you find them interesting, you'll have lovely images. We're a quarter of way there. So number 10 is narrative. So I did a whole sort of thesis on storytelling and narratives in museums, which was great. I think my favorite museum that has my favorite narrative at the moment is the Roman Baths in Bath, because instead of having the usual chronological and very artifact heavy display, they have people-led displays, meaning that, for example, if you're looking at a carving on a stone, you get this film of the carver doing the stone and telling the story in that way. I'll insert some videos, but there was another one which related to armor, and someone going to the armor person, the blacksmith usually, to get some sort of armor for them being a soldier. I tell you, I have never seen something which gave me so much joy. It was heavily based on the Roman Baths, and I think in Malta, if we adopt something like that and have it less on factual information and more about the people that lived throughout that time, I think the displays would be so much more interesting. I tell you, I think by far the Roman Baths are in my top 3 for narratives. First, so I took this prompt as being the first time I fell in love with the arts and fell in love with history and museums and conservation, and it was, I remember it very vividly. I chose art as my A-level, and usually in secondary school you only do art, like painting and drawing and all that stuff, and then obviously history is on its own. But then I remember I chose art as my A-level, and I was like, wait, I have an extra class which is art history. So what are we going to do? Are we going to just sit in the art studio and just, I don't know, go through history, choose something, I don't know, do something practical? And it was actually theoretical. So I was so confused, but then when I got introduced to this world of art history and there being a history which is not that boring, I was like, oh, okay, this can be a career. I didn't have a childhood where I was exposed to these things, and yeah, I just remember the first time going into an art history lecture and being like, wow, okay, this can be a potential career. Okay, skip to 3 years later, I was starting my bachelor degree in art history. Workspace. So if you were to ask me this 2 years ago, I would have shown you my conservation workspace, which I used to volunteer at the National Archives of Malta, and it used to be nice and all with the tools and with the artifact and everything, and I was cleaning and doing and all that jazz. Now it's just a laptop, a notebook, and my sanity. No, I'm just kidding. Yes, so at the moment it's just a laptop, a notebook, a mouse, yeah, just a usual office. And that is when I'm working from home. When I go to the office, I obviously have another monitor, I have my letter tray, and I have other people around me. So yes, that is my workspace at the moment. I also now have an office with my friends, so that can count as a workspace as well. Next one is origin, and I really found this difficult because my instinct went to archaeology and how much time I spent studying the origin of the humans. It's like I'm not a human, but anyway. But then I did some research, and apparently it's just the origin of where you come from. I hail from the tiny island of Malta. If you didn't know that already. Pen. I love pens. I do love pens, but I'm very particular with pens. I don't necessarily use them often. I do have one with my trusty notebook because when I'm in meetings I need to jot stuff down. But then again, you cannot use pens when you're in a conservation space. Pencils only. Me not using pens stems from the fear that I use a pen and I end up having my hand just flinch and do this large pen mark on an ancient document. I think there's a fear there, there's a phobia of doing that, so pencils. pencils are great. Virtual, I mean, anything has gone virtual at this point. I think museums and the conferences and the webinars are always great to attend. Movements, I think this one was a bit difficult, and when I did the research again, I found that many people related this sort of prompt to movements that take place in real life, movements that honestly changed the world. And I wrote down the Black Lives Matter movement, and in June it was a very difficult time, not only for the Black community and the Black Lives Matter community, but also for us who had to reevaluate our own values and reevaluate how to be an ally. What happened in June also shook the museum culture quite a bit, and we have these issues going on when it comes to restitution, for example, with communities that had been colonized and they were looted, and obviously there are these issues when it comes to returning these items. And I think what happened in June last year really pumped this energy into many cultural people in challenging museums who have these objects in their displays. And I personally am still learning and still trying to open my mind up to different people, different thinking, different communities. I'm working on myself, and I think that is what I relate to that prompt. Bookshelf. I have a bookshelf from my grandfather's and my grandma's house, and I can insert some footage here. We basically just took the bookcase and brought it here at home when my grandparents passed away, and yeah, it's the backdrop of all my work from home images. Dilemma. So for this one, I wrote down the dilemmas I had when it came to choosing a job. And if you're going to go into the cultural sector, you will get a lot of dilemmas when it comes to finding a job. Or it's just my thing, you know? But the cultural sector is so big and so vast that if you have a degree in history, you can go as a historian or as a researcher. Or if you have a museum studies, you can go into education, marketing, documentation, collections care, preventive conservation, conservation itself. And the dilemma, I remember someone asking me, so if you were to choose a job sector, where would you go? And I was, but I have experience in education, and I love education and taking collections and seeing the little glimmer in someone's eye when they discover that this object is, I don't know, 150 years old. And then I was like, but I love preventive conservation, I have a degree on it, I love collections care, I love documentation and digitizing. And I'm like, even my CV is so eclectic that I don't even know what I want to do. Even with marketing, where I'm at the moment, it's so vast, as in it's enormous. And obviously you take collections because they are the basis of anything you do in a museum, and still find this sort of educational / information / content creation type of enjoyment from it. Anyways, that was my dilemma a few months ago, and then I fell into marketing. And yes, even when I came back, it was between marketing, curation, and researching. Those, I think, were the 3 main jobs. And yeah, even before then, I had an internship that never happened with preventive conservation, and I applied for education officer and collections care, curation. I mean, the cultural sector is endless, and I think when you are faced with so much, some of them are clear, but others are really like hazy, light. So this one, I thought of museum lighting, and I remember from the Ashmolean Museum in 2019 where they had a display focused on conservation, and I loved it so much. I spent like an hour there, surely an hour, just playing around with these things. So they had labels, of course, explaining the conservation process, and then there was this monitor where you could touch the surface and you could see the wear and tear of the object when someone touches it and when it's not touched. And the other one was the lighting situation, so what type of lighting is used in conservation. And you had the backlight, so of course when you have a paper you could see whether there is a watermark on the paper. The other one was raking light, I believe, where you put lighting at the side of the object and you could see the how for example how thick the layer paint is, or if there's something, I don't know, moving on it. And then the last one was UV light, so you see the object in good museum lighting and then you switch on with a button and it shows you UV lighting and how the object looks under UV lighting. I'll insert a clip showing the process as I explained, but yeah, it was pretty cool. Mask, oh no, I forgot my mask, but I'll insert a picture of it. I have two masks and both of them are Van Gogh's Starry Night, but one of them is so cute because I have little Van Gogh on the side with his pipe smoking and saying Starry Night. It's so cute. It's so cute. When I saw them I was like, yes, definitely purchase them, bring them home. I'm a fan. Companion. I met my companion, i.e. my best friend, in 2014, and we were put together via an Erasmus program, and we went for 5 months to Italy in Macerata. And honestly, we started the friendship there and it's been strong for the past 7 years, I believe. I think we're going on 7 years. And yes, we've been to exhibitions together, we've done 2 degrees together, and yeah, it's great to have someone who understands you on a level where you just speak to them about an exhibition and they're not looking at you like, what are you saying? Letter. Have you heard about letter locking? I swear it's the most amazing thing that they have discovered. So in the Renaissance they used to lock letters by folding them, if I'm not mistaken. And I'll leave an article down below where recently they created an animation, a video without touching the letter. So you could see how the letter was folded and also how the letter was opened, which is great. If you're interested, I'll leave the article down below. Restoration. So as I said a few minutes ago, I was part of a restoration team as part of my conservation placement, and we did the Turkish cemetery in Marsa in Malta, and I had the pleasure of working with a restorer, and I just basically took gunk of the building. Basically that was my placement. So that's the only restoration I did, and of course I have other remedial conservation, but that's another thing. Statue. The most impressive statue that I have seen in my whole entire life is a Napoleon statue in Apsley House. It stands at 3.45 meters to the raised left hand, and I'll insert images of this, but it was so impressive that it was an ode to him being called short, because this statue was not short. It was huge. But anyways, if you're ever in London, go to Apsley House and you'll understand. Last 12 months, so this makes it April, so the last 12 months. Wow, we had just had our world turned upside down in the UK, where our degree was now online. I was worried a lot because obviously now I couldn't get home because of the planes being grounded. Wow, a lot can change in a year. Obviously it was very challenging for everyone, and I think I started YouTube as well. It's been a year since I've started YouTube. I finished my master's, I did my dissertation in 24 hours, as always. I found a job, I came back home. I mean, considering if you had asked me the question of where you'll see yourself in 2021, I would have said, well, I hope I would have stayed in Scotland at least and gotten a job and started a career in the UK museum sector, but that did not work, and I am back in Malta with a job in Malta, which I love, obviously. But yes, it's been a very long 12 months, wow. And now I've reached a point where the past few months, obviously, I found a new love. I am working on some projects. I am very excited that now I have an office with my friends. And yeah, it's been one hell of a ride. I think it didn't feel like a year. It felt like 5 years amalgamated into one, but that's fine. We're not saying anything. Global pandemic is enough. Music. I love music. I think it's an added bonus, and when it's used in exhibitions, it's far better. I think my tied memory with music is when I used to work as a social media manager with a cultural project for Valletta 2018. And I used to have these long days at work when I used to work in education. And then at like about 6 p.m. in the evening, I used to go on a summer day at 6 p.m. so lighting would just be there for another 2 to 3 hours, and I used to meet with obviously the project manager and my work colleagues, and we used to stay in this dilapidated hotel, and we used to hold events there, and usually it would have been either music or opera, music meaning piano, theater plays. And yeah, it was just a whole new atmosphere that I exposed myself. I'm very happy that I did. And I appreciate music more now, which is great. Dream. Well, let's just say I have so many dreams, plural. I have so many ideas, so many passions. And I think some of the projects that I want to do are mainly community-based. I also very much would like to open a photography museum or a photography gallery and be a curator and do the programming for it. That would be fun. A lot of dreams. In this little head of mine, I have a lot of dreams. Strength. The first thought that came with strength was a pandemic and studying in a pandemic, and I think that if you're studying, if you studied in 2020 or you're studying in 2021 or perhaps maybe at the beginning of 2022, I commend you and I give a pat on the back to anyone who has done it, because it has been a very, very long and tedious year. I mean, it started out great in 2019. I was very happy with the choice that I made, but then at the very end, with the whole stress of the pandemic and just being unable to come home if something happened, and that stress of doing basically assignments with no source material because obviously the libraries were closed, and trying to do your best to get a good average on your degree. I commend you. I think that is a level of strength and resilience that anyone had or has at the moment. Hopefully it will not be long until we can just sit in a cafeteria, in a museum cafeteria, have some lovely desserts and just enjoy a good exhibition afterwards or before. No judgment here. And last but not least, the very important but nonetheless difficult question: why museums? Why museums? If you've ever seen National Treasure, and if you haven't, where are you living? And you should watch it like after this video. If you haven't seen it though, I'm going to spoil it in the next few seconds, so skip to a minute from now so that I don't spoil it for you. But anyways, so if you have seen the National Treasure, you know that obviously at the very end, after a long and tedious adventure, they actually find the treasures that they were seeking. And honestly, with research in art history, in museums, in preventive conservation or conservation itself, the amazing thing is to share your research and to also sort of look into stuff that no one has ever seen before. There are so many collections that are still yet to be discovered, and to be the person that you actually find something or make a link or start something, it is so great. It is an amazing feeling, and that is why museums excite me so much. There's so much research that can be done, but then again, the most important thing is to share it with the public, and I think that is why we need to look into what museums are doing at the moment and change and challenge certain ideas, sharing it with a community. So if I find something exciting, I will share it with you, because that's how museums work, and I think that they are special, you know. There are some challenges and there are some things that need changing, but collections especially are very interesting, and museums and the people who work in museums sort of love the collections. They are their babies, and the minute they get to share them with the public, that is when working in a museum becomes sort of heaven. Let's just say heaven. I mean, I have never experienced heaven, but I think that's how it feels. And they share the passion, they share the love for the arts, they share the love for museums and collections, and they share it with stories to try and create some change, you know. That's it. That's Museum 30. I think it would have been shorter to do it on Twitter, but I love doing videos, and I hope that this was fruitful. Please make sure to grab a prompt and put it down in the comments below. I would love to hear your memories or stories related to these prompts. So yeah, Gracie's Twitter in my description down below, so that you can go check her out and perhaps give her a follow, so that you can join in the next Museum 30 of this year. Subscribe, like this video, and hit the notification bell. I will see you next Wednesday. I will see you next Wednesday. Stay safe, wear a mask, and take care. Bye.